characters, incidents, names, and situations used in this story are fictitious. The resemblance to any person living or dead is purely coincidental. The following video contains some horror elements and suitable for a mature audience, 16 plus. This channel and video is not for kids.
Hello friends, I am Aryan and welcome to our channel Midnight Horror Stories, where you get to hear true and scary ghost stories. But before starting the story, all the friends who have come to this channel for the first time, please subscribe to the channel, and if you like the story, then definitely introduce yourself in the comment section. Then let's do not take much time and start our story quickly. In a deserted village in West Bengal, there is a pond, Kalabil. It is said that there is a vampire living in the depths of it, which people call submarine. Whoever went to him in the darkness of the night, he didn't come back alive. In the morning, his body was found lying on the shore, cold, blue, and eyes wide open. For decades, the villagers have lived in fear of it. No one dares to go near the pond even during the day. But have you ever wondered, who is this submarine? And when will his thirst for death be quenched? Today, we are going to open the door to this dark secret. Nestled among lush green fields and dense bamboo groves in the southern part of West Bengal was a small village, Ghanshampur. The road to the village was unpaved, filled with mud in the rain and dust in the summer. The weather here was humid and heavy for most of the year, as if an invisible mist floated in the air. In the rainy season, the sky often darkened even during the day, and by evening, the sound of the leaves of hyacinths could be heard in the distance between the tur-tur of the frogs. The villagers lived in simplicity, paddy farming, fishing, and menial manual work. There was a sweetness of Bengali in his language, but the same voice sounded heavy and trembling in times of fear. Every year, rituals like Saraswati Puja, Durga Puja, and Chhat were celebrated with great pomp and show, but there was one place where the music of any festival did not reach: the Kalabil pond in the heart of the village. The pond was big, but looked strangely black, as if the color of the sky had dissolved in its water. There were thick layers of moss and hyacinths on the shore, and the water in the middle so deep that nothing could be seen below. Around the pond were leaning banyan and peepal trees, long hangings from their roots swinging gently in the wind and occasionally touching the water. Even during the day, there was a strange coolness and silence near the pond, as if time was slowing down here. If someone accidentally went there alone, a faint rustle would be heard from under the water, as if someone was shaking from below. At night, this place would become even more terrifying. A faint mist floated above the water in the faint light of the firefly, and sometimes it seemed as if an invisible eye was watching from the depths. Even dogs and cats didn't wander this way. The elders of the village used to say, "The water of Kalabil looks as black as it looks. He has drunk as much blood." With lullabies and folk songs, one more thing was sure of the lives of the children of Ghanshampur: the stories of the submarine. After dinner in every house, in the dim light of the stove, the old people would tell this story in a low voice, and the children would silently hide their heads in their knees in fear. It is said that the submarine was no ordinary ghost. He was a cursed vampire of the depths of the water, who would only come out at night. His body was like a human, but his face was half rotten, eyes red as burning embers, and teeth so sharp as to rip even iron. It is said that when he was underwater, his long black hair strands would wave around like snakes. There were many stories in the village. Once, a fisherman Nimai went to cast a net in the pond late at night. He heard someone calling his name from under the water in a very sweet voice. "Nimai, the second vowel of the Devanagari syllabary. He stepped forward, and the next morning found his body lying on the shore, black water flowing from his mouth, eyes open and still. Another time on a rainy night, a woman went to fetch water. The man standing nearby saw that her pitcher fell, and she plunged into the water. But after that, only a loud splash was heard, and the pond became just as quiet again. In the morning, a torn piece of her red sari and deep claw marks were found in the soil on the shore. The elders of the village used to say that this vampire catches the shadow of the person who descends into the water. As soon as a person leans over the shore and looks into the water, his shadow hand slowly lifted up and then pulls the man down. For decades, this had been going on. People were now afraid to go near the pond even during the day. Even while working in the field, if the wind direction came from the pond, some people would leave work and return home, because the air smelled like a strange, rotten fish.
The stories of the submarine in Ghanshampur were not just fear, but living wounds. There was someone in every street who had lost someone in that black water. The first name that came to mind was Subhota. Till 3 years ago, Subhodh used to run his household by fishing in the pond in his small boat. One day, on a cold night in the month of Kartik, he went out with a net and did not return. In the morning, the villagers saw that his boat was lying upside down on the shore and the net was lying wet beside it. But in the middle of the net was a tuft of human hair. Subhodh's body was found floating on the water 2 days later, face white, lips chapped, nails rubbed, as if he had tried to dig the soil under the water to escape some invisible force. His wife Shanti still sits in the courtyard of the house, looking blankly at the pond. Another incident which shook the entire village was Suman's death. Suman was 14 years old, playful and cheerful. One afternoon, he went to the pond playing with his friends. Friends later told that some red-colored cloth was floating in the middle of the water and Suman got bound to catch it. But as soon as he stretched out his hand, the water suddenly began to rise, and they all ran away in fear. The search continued till evening, but no clue was found. The next morning, his corpse lay on the side. The expression on his face was as if he had tried to recognize someone till his last breath. Village elders say that the submarine does not just take the body, he also swallows the soul. Perhaps that's why around the house of these prey, the ducks would suddenly start chattering loudly at night, or the dogs would growl for no reason. Now every child in the village was growing up hearing this from their parents. Don't go near the pond, otherwise the submarine will call your name too. Haridas Babu, the Pradhan of Ghanshampur, was counted among the most respected and good-hearted people of the village. The white dhoti, the khadi kurta, and a slight wrinkle on his forehead, his face was always calm, but whenever the submarines came up, fear was evident in his eyes. In the last 3 years, he himself had seen 4 corpses coming out of the pond. Each time, they tried to comfort the victim's family, but knew in their hearts that it was just words. The real fear had crept into every heart of the village. One evening, people gathered in the veranda of the panchayat. In the light of the lantern burning under the banyan tree, every face seemed tired and scared. Ram Prasad, an elder of the village, said, "We tried several times. The tantric called, chant the mantra, but no one could stop the submarine. Now no one dares to go near the pond even during the day." Some whispered that perhaps the water gods were angry and that the submarine was their messenger. Some said that it was an old curse and that death would continue until the cause was found. Haridas Babu took a deep breath and said, "We can't live like this. This fear is slowly killing us. We have to do something, but whoever does, he will have to put his life on the line." There was silence in the village. People looked at each other's faces, fear in someone's eyes, helplessness in somebody's eyes. Just then, a strange buzzing sound came from the distance in the direction of the pond, as if someone was screaming as he sank into the depths. People stood up in astonishment. No one dared to know whose voice it was. That night, the doors in every house were firmly locked and the flame of the lantern burned for a long time. But Haridas Babu sat alone in his courtyard with only one thought in his mind. If this doesn't stop, one day, the entire village will be submerged in the waters of Kala Bil. It was the last week of the rainy days. Humidity and dampness reigned all around Ghanshampur. Moss had accumulated on the walls and the smell of mud and rotten fish permeated the air. Meanwhile, one afternoon, the villagers were startled when they saw a stranger approaching on the main trail.
He was tall, lean, and mysterious. A black-brown ochre robe on his body, a garland of bones and lemon around his neck, and a white ash tilak on his forehead. In his right hand was a black serpent-shaped pole, at the end of which was a shining bronze statue. The people followed him to the Panchayat Bhavan, where Haridas Babu was already present. He said in a low but cold voice, "My name is Bhairavnath. I have meditated in the snowy caves of the Himalayas, and I know what's in your pond." The villagers were stunned. Bhairavnath further said, "The submarine is no ordinary vampire. It is a bonded soul, imprisoned by the water within itself. There is a story behind his death, and until its cause is eradicated, it will not stop drinking blood." He took out an old brass bowl and a bunch of black threads from his pouch. Then the mantra began to bubble slowly. The water was poured into the bowl, and the water turned black and boiled in front of everyone, as if it had been touched by an invisible force. Bhairavnath closed his eyes and said, "On this new moon night, you have to go down to the depths of the pond. But remember, if I lose, my corpse will also be found on the shore, and the submarine will become even more powerful." Some of the villagers turned away in fear, but Haridas Babu said in a firm voice, "We are with you, but what do you want?" Bhairavnath's eyes lit up with a slight red glow. "Just a lantern, a handful of clay, and the courage to die." The night of the new moon. There was not a single star in the sky, and there was a thick fog all around. The air was so cold that steam was coming out of the breath. The faint light of the lantern flickered on the bank of the Kalabil pond, and behind it stood a few courageous people of the village, both fear and hope on their faces. Bhairavnath buried the black serpent stick in the soil and filled the brass bowl with water and placed it on the shore. Slowly, the sound of mantra started echoing in the air. Om Kal Jaleshwaram Namaha. The water of the pond was first stagnant, then circular waves started forming in the middle. Suddenly, a bubble burst from the depths, then another, and then a terrifying figure came out of the water. Red eyes, wet long black hair, greenish-blue rotten spots on the skin, and sharp teeth. Drops of water were dripping from his body, but as they fell, small smoke flames rose on the ground, as if it were poison, not water. The villagers panicked and retreated. The submarine raised his long bone-like hand and pointed straight to Bhairavnath. A deep, resounding voice said, "Go away, otherwise your breath will be drowned in this water." Bhairavnath closed his eyes, held the stick tightly, and chanted loudly. A bright blue light emanated from the tip of the bar and fell on the submarine's chest. The surface of the water began to boil, steam rose, and the submarine gave an ear-splitting scream. But instead of backing down, he became even more ferocious. He raised waves of water around him and in one swoop grabbed Bhairavnath and dragged him into the water up to his knees.
The people of the village started screaming, but no one dared to move forward. Bhairavnath hit the dand, the head of the submarine, and threw the black water of his bowl towards him. As the water fell on the submarine, smoke began to come out of his skin and his screams became even more terrifying than before. There was a tremendous movement in the water. The waves rose so high that even the people standing on the shore were drenched. Both Bhairavnath and the submarine disappeared in waves.
There was silence for a few moments. Then the water slowly calmed down. The villagers came to the shore timidly. There was only Bhairavnath's black serpent punishment, and he had a large dark claw mark on the wet soil in which water was still dripping. After the new moon night, a strange silence fell over Ghanshampur. People did not go near the Kalabil pond for several days. That was the only buzz in the village. Bhairavnath killed the submarine, or did the submarine take him? Haridas Babu would go to the bank of the pond every morning and watch the water from a distance. The pond was no longer as black as it used to be. There was a slight redness in it, as if a drop of blood had dissolved in it. Bhairavnath's black serpent on the shore was now dry, but there was a green moss-like lump on its end, resembling the skin of a snake. The children of the village would still hear strange sounds at night, like splashing water or calling a name from the depths. Occasionally, suddenly, the same old rotten fish smell would spread in the air, which was felt before the arrival of the submarine. One evening when the sun had gone down and a faint mist floated over the pond, Shanti, Subhod's widow, sat on the shore. He saw his own shadow in the water, and that shadow smiled lightly. Shanti looked back in shock, but no one was there. That night, a shepherd passing by the pond swore that he saw someone in the water, tall, lean, with an ash tilak on his forehead and a black serpent in his hand. The figure was slowly sinking underwater, and behind him floated a red-eyed submarine. After that, the whispers began again in the village. The submarine was not alone, now they are two. Friends, this story may be fictional, but its fear teaches us a true thing. It is easy to run away from fear in life, but facing it is the real victory. We all have a submarine in our lives, some difficulty, some fear, some problem. But unless we confront him, it will keep pulling us back. So face your fears and be the hero of your own story. If you like the story, like, share and subscribe, because your one click gives us the power to create even more scary, exciting and inspiring stories. See you in the next story. Until then, remember, darkness isn't always there to frighten you. Sometimes it comes to test your courage.